Across the old world, from the highest peaks to the deepest forests, a green tide is rising. Its threat is not a grand strategy, not a single kingdom, and not even a real motive beyond pure, unadulterated violence. And honestly, that lack of sophistication is what makes it as terrifying as it is. The Greenskins are a rolling natural disaster that plagues every kingdom and every place on the entire planet. Its destructive nature is, in and of itself, a unique trait that we see throughout all of Warhammer. This threat is so great it's even brought several kingdoms and empires to their knees as the Greenskins press in on them. The Orcs and Goblins are absolutely everywhere. So today, forget all of your disciplined regiments and ornate banners and clever political machinations. Today we're going to be talking about the stories of the Greenskins and where they came from. This is going to be... So to start out simply, what exactly is a greenskin? A greenskin is a term used by most of the humans and elves to group an entire family of species together. These span from the massive black orcs all the way down to the smallest goblin. And there's a lot of variety and differences between these different types, including not all of them actually being green. Green is the most common, but there's a lot of variance in their skin tones and things like that. The main reason that they get grouped together is because of some pretty similar traits. First, they love to fight. No matter who they are or where they are or what they're fighting, the love of the fight is exactly what they're after. That and their gods, Gork and Mork, encourage them to continue to fight constantly. And that is the entire basis of their religion and their entire political structure. On top of that, they are extremely strong even for their size. So whether we're talking about a Gretchen who's maybe 5 feet tall and skinny as a human, or a black orc who is built like any of the world's strongest men and or bigger, or a goblin who's maybe 3 feet tall and has a pony stick, all of them are going to be far stronger than anyone actually expects them to be. On top of that, they are very nimble and surprisingly cunning in most cases. These unique traits make them all fall into the same family, even though a lot of times a goblin and a black orc do not have a ton in common, and they don't even get along. As a family of species, they are built to fight, whether that be in mass hordes as the goblins fight or in elite units like the black orcs do. Every single one of them can take more wounds than humans can in every way, shape, and form. Wounds that would often kill a human will often just be an inconvenience to a greenskin. And this durability, paired with their constant drive to fight, leads them to be extremely dangerous. Now, Orc society is based on one thing in particular, and that is strength. The biggest and the strongest will always lead as the war boss. We see this frequently throughout all of the stories and lore, and is a common trait throughout Warhammer, whether it be in fantasy or in sci-fi. The big boss will always be the biggest boss, and that's what makes them unique. And you'll see this represented on the tabletop as well. The war bosses will always be bigger models than anyone else. The goblins, on the other hand, tend to worship Mork more than Gork, which means they tend to lean more to the cunning side than the brutal side. Don't get me wrong, they are horribly brutal and they will massacre anything and anything in its way, but they prize cunning and sneakiness, and in a lot of cases conniving and backstabbing to get to their goals. Often their leader is not the biggest, although that does happen frequently. He's usually the most cunning. Think Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, or one of those sneaky, conniving, extremely dangerous people that is in a lot of stories. That's probably going to be your goblin war boss. This makes them even more dangerous because they can walk you into a trap, and traps are what they do best. The big difference in this belief between cunning and brutality tends to keep the orcs and the goblins separate, although there is a lot of crossover with certain goblins going to serve the orcs, and sometimes are known to manipulate them. But most of the time they keep quite separate, especially the night goblins and the black orcs. They absolutely hate each other because they are the extremes. The black orcs, while extremely intelligent, are also the most brutal of the orcs themselves, while the night goblins are the sneakiest. They're constantly doing counter siege warfare, sneaking around, digging tunnels, and ambushing their enemies. The history of this destructive family of species is so ingrained in the world that it's seen throughout the maps and the legends as a whole. The level of destruction that the Greenskins can level on a city will turn it to rubble in a moment. Their hordes of warriors are so vast that they often cut off the dwarves and leave dwarf cities stranded until centuries later when someone goes to try and find them. These goblins and orcs are hyper destructive and hyper dangerous. And the orcs and goblins don't keep actual written records, but their shamans do pass down oral histories, which is where some of the stories we get and the legends we get throughout the lore come from. But the thing that's most important to them is always the Waaagh. I have become an energy drink fiend over the last decade or so. I've struggled to find one that I really like. But with my sponsor, Dubby, that all changed almost overnight. I was able to find energy drinks I like the Japanese yuzu flavor and Japanese soda and all that fun stuff, as well as really cool drinkware. I've become a fan of Freerin lately, and they did just collab with them for some really cool bottles and things like that, as well as cool merch. So if you want to try out a clean, healthy energy drink that has a lot less negative effects than anything else, the only thing you're going to get from W is a caffeine boost, unlike a lot of the other energy drinks where you're going to be feeling sick, or sometimes they just taste horrible, and you want to look cool drinking it, just like I do. Check out w.gg and use code WARGAME, which is going to pull up right here, for 10% off. w.gg, code WARGAME. If you enter that code, you'll get 10% off your first order, as well as any subsequent orders as well. And that goes to help sponsor the channel today, and have to give another shout out to my longest sponsor, W, once again. So, let me get some more energy, and we'll get back to the video. So, in order to deep dive, we need to start from the beginning. Where did they come from, and what are they like now? The answer to the first question is, no one really knows. According to all of the deep lore, all we know is both the elves and the Slun note their appearance on the planet thousands of years ago. No one really knows where they came from or how they got there. The most common belief is that the materials used by the old ones to create the planet contained the original Greenskins, whether that be the simple mushrooms that bred them, or it was some type of biological weapon the old ones had been creating and storing on the planet in order to prepare for some major fight. We don't know. Some fans even point to their spore-based reproduction as a connection to the 40k universe, but it's all just speculation at this point. The Greenskins shamans have a simpler story. Their gods, Gork and Mork, got into a fight, fell out of the sky, and populated the planet with orcs. As they grew, they formed tribes. These tribes varied in size and structure, often depending on what type of race we're talking about. If you're talking about the goblins live in large societies of mobs and mobs of goblins who are constantly ready for a fight, constantly bickering with each other, and constantly trying to trick each other into doing things. They're not dissimilar to the Skaven in that way, but they're less torn by the whims of chaos and warpstone. Orc tribes tend to be a lot smaller and a lot more concentrated on a fighting band, often mobile and migratory. They sweep across land that they consider their own territory, striving for as much violence and destruction as they can possibly find. Their people tend to be very segmented, and even their hierarchy is violence-driven. The orcs are known for constant fights for the position of war boss, and the war boss is always strong enough to unite these tribes, and when a war boss gets strong enough, it can result in a Waaagh, a fight to the death against the nearest civilization, and not stopping until the orcs have had enough. In order to understand the Greenskins, you need to understand their gods. The twins, Gork and Mork, are the pantheon of the Greenskins. Gork is brutally cunning, while Mork is cunningly brutal. Or, depending on who you ask, it could be the other way around. This razor-thin distinction between the two gods is something that the Orcs and Goblins take very seriously. It's a theological debate that shows a level of intelligence that you don't see from the Greenskins almost anywhere else. This debate has gone so far as sparking multiple civil wars and creating major rifts between certain factions. As we discussed, the Night Goblins and the Black Orcs are one of the largest in this. Greenskins don't really pray for blessings or for any type of boon from their gods. They fight. Their worship is the fight. There's nothing else more important than the battle fury and the bloodlust, so that you're paying tribute to Gork or Mork or both, or Gork or Morka in a few cases, depending on who you ask. This Waaagh and the simple greenskin culture that's tied around it is exactly what it sounds like. Everything revolves around it, and this crusade of pure aggression often leads to confrontations with the different races, and that's their end goal. That's what they want. The craziest part about the Greenskins themselves is that the more of them there are, the stronger their magic becomes. They have some shamans who wield magic, but most of the time, orcs wield magic not knowing they're wielding magic. This is a trait that they share with their 40k companions, but for them, their belief and their reality are the same thing. If they believe it, it will become true, or it is already true. This can create fields of psychic energy that push their bloodlust and rage even further in a spiraling fashion until every orc in the general region is attracted to one warlord or one war boss. And this is what leads to the large Waahs that have almost deleted empires throughout the stories. This Waaagh magic is what drives the Waaagh forward, but the Waaagh magic is just as fleeting as it is powerful. It takes one dead shaman at the right time, or a dead war boss, to instantly snuff out the Waaagh magic and collapse the Waaagh itself. We've seen this throughout the lore multiple times, especially with the rise of Bretonnia. The Greenskin race is a mess of different subcultures, and in some cases species with special brands of mayhem. They have a variety of different use cases and places where they appear. And this has led to different varieties of orcs and goblins for everything they need. So now we're going to be talking about the different cultures and factions inside the Greenskins. First, we start with the basics. The orcs as a whole are a unique race that focuses exclusively on the Waaagh. They're exactly what you think they are. They're big, they're green, and they're mean. They live for the battle, and they're constantly fighting each other as much as they are anyone else around them. They're thick and muscular, and are often used as frontline shock troops, and that's what we expect from orcs in general. These orcs can be pretty much anywhere. They're pretty versatile. They're not hyper-specialized like some of the others, but they can rise up anywhere at any time and cause problems. The next group is smaller, weaker, and more cowardly than the orcs, and that's the goblins. The goblins can survive by sheer numbers and a very low yet high cunning at the same time. The goblins are known to live in forests and often tame wolves and spiders and build giant shaky war machines to fight. They sometimes will pair with the orcs, sometimes they'll fight on their own, and this leaves them in a very dangerous place to the rest of the world. Because of their size and their ability to rapidly build things or tame wild animals, they can appear out of nowhere and cause mayhem very, very quickly. While a single goblin is easy to kill, the fact that they're showing up in mass numbers means that you're going to have to kill far more than you actually can in the amount of time it takes them to kill you. And for the goblins, that's exactly what they want. They want to die in the fight. And by living, that's how they become more powerful. Beneath the mountains, we find our third faction. The Night Goblins are very distinct from their goblin cousins. While they do still ride spiders and wolves into fights and build war machines, their specialty is ambush attacks. They love to hide in mountains and holes and catch an unexpected dwarf or human to raid him for all of his supplies. The Night Goblins are also very famous for their love of squigs. The squig is a very unique creature as well that no one really knows where they come from, but are extremely violent, deranged beings that the Night Goblins sick on their foes. On top of that, the Night Goblins have a very unique trait. They love very strong brews made from wild mushrooms. These mushrooms aren't the healthy kind of mushrooms. They're the send you on a wild trip type of mushrooms, and are often the cause of as much destruction in their own ranks as destruction in the enemy's ranks. Because these goblins will be sent out in a wild fashion, deranged and off their minds from these mushrooms, with the only desire is to kill anything around them. Beyond the core groups that we just talked about, there's a few specialized, more unique orcs that we need to address as well. The first is the Black Orcs. The Black Orcs were created by the Chaos Dwarves, intended to be servants and soldiers for them. They created them smarter, intending to be able to reason with them, but instead of becoming disciplined slaves, the Black Orcs finally broke free and took their fight against anything and everything they could find. They especially hate the Chaos Dwarves and the Night Goblins. They see the Night Goblins as being the root of the problem for the Chaos Dwarves that caused them to create them in the first place. So this belief has caused issues for the Black Orcs and the Night Goblins ever since. The Black Orcs are famous for being heavily armored, heavy weapon specialists who are extremely good at fights and destruction, and will often duel their foes, unlike a lot of the other Green Tide. They're almost sophisticated and almost honorable, but the fight is the only thing that still matters to them, so that is what drives them. The next is a group of orcs that are the literal opposite, the Savage Orcs. These orcs have gone completely feral. They don't wear armor, they use stone weapons, and they believe in fighting with nothing more than magical war paint and a big rock. They're happy with sometimes using a metal choppa if they can find it, but they will never make it themselves. These orcs are driven by a primal frenzy to kill anything in their way. The greenskin ecosystem doesn't end there. They bring in lumbering trolls and giants as well that serve them as sometimes slaves, sometimes are even perceived as walking avatars of Gork and Mork. And finally, the Snotlings, small, minuscule greenskins who serve the others across the board, either becoming a snack when they're hungry in case of emergency, or working as their servants doing menial chores, setting up camp, that kind of stuff. The history of the Greenskins is nothing more than a long story of legendary warriors who united the tribes for a good scrap. Perhaps one of the most famous is Gorbad Ironclaw, the archetypal orc war boss. Leading the Ironclaw tribe, he united a massive Waaagh that crashed into the Empire, like a tidal wave. His invasion was so devastating that it led to the death of the sitting emperor and completely wiped out the province of Solent off the map. Its land later carved up by its neighbors. Then there's Azarg the Slaughterer, a powerful orc whose story is a perfect example of greenskin might meeting the dark powers. Azarg was a scary dude in his own right, but he discovered the Crown of Sorcery, a powerful relic left behind by Nagash himself. The Crown Spirit, an ancient lieutenant of Nagash, whispered constant advice and strategies to Azarg, making him one of the most successful Waaagh leaders in orc history. This made him a tactical genius, but also made him lose his mind throughout the process. The Greenskin Tides are constant and endless. There's thousands of more warlords we could talk about, but for now, let me know which Greenskins you'd like me to talk about or focus on in later videos. I may do deep dives into some of these characters, whether it's the Night Goblin's King Snarstick, or maybe the Black Orcs Grimgore Ironhide. Let me know in the comments below if any of these interest you and you'd like me to do a video on them. Or if you'd like me to do any other lore breakdowns like this one about the other factions. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It means a lot to us to spend a lot of time on these videos and deep diving like we do to get that response from you guys. And make sure you ring the little bell so you get notified anytime we have new videos coming out as well. For the Warhammer world, the Greenskin forces are the enemy at the gate, constantly pressing and constantly appearing where you least expect them. They are the threat that crashes against the shores of civilization and holds it in check. They're the reason the Empire hasn't expanded even more. They're the reason Bretonnia even exists. They're the reason that the Tomb Kings aren't able to press further north as well. And this constant threat that they present is what makes them interesting. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, try out the Greenskins. They're a lot of fun on the tabletop, and I can personally say I enjoy playing them. And don't forget to check out our sponsor for today, W Energy. If you need energy to stand up with the Waaagh and fight beside them, they're the place to get it. Make sure you use code WARGAME to get 10% off, and I will see you guys in the next one.